There are two lists every Sierra 1500 writes after 100,000 miles. The list of things that never broke, and the list of things that cost real money. 4 components survive without question. 3 wear on schedule and cost hundreds. 2 can cost thousands if you're not ready. After seeing hundreds of high-mileage Sierras, here's exactly what 100,000 miles does to this truck. Let's start with the good. And the first one is the thing most Sierra owners never think about, because it never gives them a reason to. The frame. GM's fully boxed hydroformed frame is one of the strongest structures in the full-size truck market. On every Sierra from the GMT 900 forward, the frame rails are boxed on all 4 sides, not 3 like a C-channel, not open like earlier designs, fully enclosed. And at 100,000 miles in a non-Rust Belt truck, the structural integrity is identical to the day it rolled off the line. No flex, no cracking, no fatigue. Ford uses an aluminum body on a steel frame. Ram uses a steel body on a steel frame. GM's fully boxed design provides a rigidity that Sierra owners take completely for granted until they drive something else and feel the difference. Now here's the caveat. In salt states, the Midwest, the Northeast, anywhere that sprays brine on winter roads, frame rust is an issue on GMT 900 and early K2XX trucks. Brake line corrosion is usually the first sign, but the frame structure itself, the steel, the welds, the box sections, in a non-corrosive environment, it's bulletproof. The frame will outlast every component bolted to it. The foundation your Sierra is built on is the last thing that will ever let you down. And the second good is the reason that foundation has something worth protecting on top of it. The 5.3 bottom end. Block, crankshaft, connecting rods, pistons. The LS and LT architecture that GM has been building since 1997 is one of the most over-engineered platforms in automotive history. Iron block or aluminum block with iron cylinder sleeves, forged steel crankshaft, powdered metal connecting rods, and at 100,000 miles, assuming oil was maintained, 0 wear on crank journals, 0 rod bearing issues, 0 piston ring problems. Here's the thing. The same architecture sits in the Corvette, the Camaro, and the CT5V Blackwing at 500 to 650 horsepower from the factory. The Sierra 5.3 makes 355. It's not working hard. It's loafing through its entire service life. This is the foundation that allows the 5.3 to reach 300,000 miles. The top end, lifters, camshaft, is the weak point we'll get to. But the bottom end is the reason the engine survives long enough to have a top-end problem in the first place. At 100,000 miles, the bottom end isn't a concern. It's not even a conversation. It's a 300,000-mile concern on a truck that's barely broken in. The engine GM built is better than the fuel-saving system they bolted on top of it. And good number 3 is the transmission that proved GM could build a reliable automatic before they got ambitious. The 6L80 transmission, found in every GMT 900 Sierra and early K2XX models. At 100,000 miles with fluid changed every 60 to 80,000. This transmission shifts clean, holds torque, doesn't shudder, doesn't slip, and doesn't need anything except fresh fluid. It's rated for significantly more torque than the 5.3 produces, which means it's never stressed in this application. It's just doing its job, shift after shift, mile after mile. The 6L80 replaced the 4L60E, a transmission that was adequate but had a documented failure rate that kept rebuild shops busy for 2 decades. The 6L80 is a different animal, stronger internals, better calibration, and a dramatically lower failure rate. I'm not done yet. The 8L90 and 10L80 that replaced it. We'll get to those in the ugly section. But the comparison matters. The 6L80 just works. No shudder complaints, no calibration wars, no torque converter debates on forums. It does its job and disappears into the background. At 100,000 miles, a maintained 6L80 has another 100,000 in it without a second thought. The transmission GM got right before they tried to get clever. Now, good number 4 surprised me, because it's the category where GM used to be the worst in the business. Interior durability. specifically on the K2X, X, and T1XX generations, 2014 and newer. Starting with the 2014 redesign, Sierra interior quality made a genuine leap. The materials are thicker, the switchgear is heavier, the seats are better bolted and better padded, and at 100,000 miles, they hold up. Seats maintain their shape. The Denali leather ages well with basic conditioning, and the SLT cloth is nearly indestructible. The dashboard doesn't crack on K2XX and T1XX trucks, a massive improvement over what came before. Infotainment screens survive. Door handles, window switches, HVAC controls. They work at 100,000 the same way they worked at 10,000. Stay with me here. The GMT 900 is a different story. The dashboard on GMT 900 Sierras cracks, specifically the defroster vent area. It's a known issue. Sun exposure heats the dash, the material shrinks, and a split develops across the top. Cosmetic, not functional, but ugly. A dash cover runs $100 to $200. A full replacement is $300 to $600. It's the one interior weak point on an otherwise solid truck. But K2XX and newer, the interior is no longer the weak link in the Sierra ownership experience. At 100,000 miles, it still feels like a truck with purpose. The cabin finally matches the capability. Those are the four things that survive 100,000 miles on a Sierra without drama: the frame, the bottom end, the 6L80, and the modern interior. They're the reason the Sierra is worth owning long term. But the next three are the costs you need to budget for. Starting with the one every Sierra owner has already dealt with. Drop a comment. How many miles on your Sierra and what's broken so far? I want to see what's out there, and if you're finding this useful, hit subscribe. I break down real ownership data on GMC trucks every week. Not dealer brochures, not forum guesses, the stuff mechanics actually see. Let's keep going with the bad. Bad number one, the brake system. At 100,000 miles on a Sierra, you've done brakes at least twice. If you tow, possibly 3 times. This isn't a defect, it's physics. A 5,200 to 5,400 pound truck stopping from highway speed generates enormous thermal energy, and the rotors absorb all of it. Front rotors on Sierras warp more frequently than on some competitors, and the reason is the rotor size relative to the truck's weight. Pulsation under braking, that vibration through the pedal when stopping from highway speed, shows up at 40 to 60,000 miles on many Sierras. It's nearly universal. The fix is rotor replacement, not resurfacing. Once they've warped, they'll warp again if resurfaced because the metal has already been stress cycled. Front brake job, rotors and pads, runs $300 to $600. Rear disc brakes on higher trims need attention at $60,000 to $80,000. Rear drums on work truck trims last significantly longer, often the full $100,000 without replacement. Here's the cheap fix that prevents the expensive problem. Caliper slide pins on GMT 900 Sierras seize up from corrosion. When a slide pin seizes, the caliper doesn't float properly, and one pad does all the work. Uneven wear, premature rotor warping, and eventually a caliper replacement. Cleaning and re-greasing the slide pins during every brake service, a $20 fix, prevents a $400 caliper replacement. Over 100,000 miles, budget $800 to $1,500 total in brake work. That's not abnormal for a truck this heavy. Just don't be surprised by it. Brakes are the tax you pay for 5,000 pounds of capability. Bad number two is the front end. And it's the category that separates a Sierra that tracks straight from one that wanders. Suspension wear items, ball joints, tie rod ends, and shocks. At 100,000 miles, your factory shocks are done. Whether they're Rancho, Delco, or whatever GM installed for your trim level, they're blown by 80 to 100,000 miles. The ride deteriorates so gradually that most owners don't notice. They adapt. The truck feels a little looser over bumps, a little more body roll in turns, a little more nosedive under braking. Then they install new shocks and realized what they've been missing for the last 20,000 miles. Ball joints. On a stock height Sierra, factory ball joints last 100 to 120,000 miles. On a leveled truck, that drops to 60 to 80,000 because the geometry puts additional stress on the lower ball joint. If your Sierra is leveled and you're past 70,000 miles, your ball joints are on borrowed time. Check for play every oil change. Tie rod ends. Outers typically go at 80 to 100,000. Inners last longer. The symptom is loose steering, wandering at highway speed, and uneven tire wear on the inner or outer edge. The complete front-end refresh, ball joints, upper and lower, inner and outer tie rods, front and rear shocks, runs $1,500 to $3,000 depending on parts quality. This isn't a failure. It's scheduled wear on a truck that weighs over 2.5 tons. Budget for it at 100,000 miles, and you won't be surprised. Everything in the front end is replaceable, predictable, and documented. It's not if, it's when. And when is around 100,000. And bad number 3 is the one that annoys Sierra owners more than anything else, because it's never the same problem twice. Electrical gremlins, sensors, modules, and wiring. By 100,000 miles, at least one electrical surprise has shown up. The question is, which one? Oil pressure sensor failure is the most common. Gives a false low oil pressure warning on an engine with perfectly healthy pressure. Creates panic, leads to misdiagnosis, and sometimes results in an unnecessary oil pump replacement before someone checks the $20 sensor. TPMS sensors die at 40 to 80 per wheel. Instrument cluster stepper motors fail, gauges read wrong or stick. 2 to 400 for the cluster repair. On the K2XX, body control module glitches that kill interior lights or power locks intermittently. Trailer brake module failures on towing-equipped trucks. Infotainment screen delamination on early 2014 through 2015 models, where the screen layers separate and create a cloudy or bubbly appearance. On the T1XX, parking sensor failures, backup camera image degradation, and random warning lights from modules that lose communication with each other temporarily. None of these are catastrophic. All of them are annoying. And each one costs $100 to $500 to diagnose and fix. The pattern across every generation is the same. GM's mechanical engineering is excellent. Their electrical engineering is adequate. Sensors and modules are the tax you pay for owning a truck with 47 computers running simultaneously. GM builds great trucks and okay wiring harnesses. Those are the 3 predictable costs at 100,000 miles: brakes, front end, and electrical. Budget for them, and they're maintenance items. Ignore them, and they become problems. But the next 2, the ugly, are in a different category entirely. These are the ones that cost thousands, and both are preventable. Ugly number 1, and the defining issue of Sierra 1500 ownership at 100,000 miles, is AFM and DFM lifter failure. This is the component that separates the Sierra ownership experience from every competitor. Ford doesn't have it. Ram doesn't have it at this failure rate. This is a GM-specific system with a GM-specific failure pattern. And after seeing hundreds of Sierras past 100,000 miles, I can tell you exactly how it plays out. On the GMT 900 with AFM, 4-cylinder deactivation, lifter failures typically appear between 80 and 150,000 miles. The lifters that deactivate cylinders cycle thousands of times per drive. Over time, the roller on the lifter wears, sticks, or collapses. When it collapses, it grinds against the camshaft lobe. Metal on metal. Thousands of revolutions per minute. The cam lobe gets destroyed. Metal debris enters the oil system. On the T1XX with DFM, 17 pattern deactivation, failures are documented as early as 40 to 80,000 miles because the system cycles more aggressively across more patterns. More cycling means more wear. First-year 2019 trucks are the worst affected. The repair at Stage 1, lifters and cam, $3,000 to $5,500. If you drive on it and let metal contaminate the oil system, $5,000 to $7,000. If you ignore it long enough for bearings and cylinder walls to score, engine replacement at $6,000 to $15,000. Now here's the thing, a $270 AFM or DFM disabler on day 1. Full synthetic oil at 5,000 mile intervals. Dipstick checked every fill-up. That combination drops the lifter failure risk to near zero. The weakness is known. The fix is cheap. And the rest of the engine, that bulletproof bottom end we talked about, is built to last 300,000 miles once the lifter variable is removed. The most preventable expensive repair in the truck market, $270 or $5,000. That's not a choice. That's a math problem. And ugly number 2, the one that only affects K2XX and T1XX owners, is the transmission that replaced the one GM got right. Ugly number 2, the 8L90 and 10L80 transmission. The 6L80 was reliable, proven. Nobody complained about it. GM replaced it with an 8-speed in 2014 and a 10-speed in 2019, and both have documented issues that the 6-speed never had. The 8L90's signature problem is torque converter shudder, a vibration at light throttle between 30 and 60 miles per hour that feels like driving on a grooved road. GM's fix: fluid change to Mobile 1, synthetic LVATFHP plus ATCM reflash. Sometimes it works permanently, sometimes it comes back. When the fluid change doesn't solve it, torque converter replacement runs $1,200 to $2,500. The 10L80 brought its own complaints. Gear hunting on hills where the transmission can't decide between 7th and 8th, delayed downshifts that leave you hanging when you need power, and harsh 1-2 shifts at low speed. GM issued multiple calibration updates. The revised torque converter design in mid-2022 production addressed the worst of it. At 100,000 miles, if the fluid has been changed on schedule and the calibrations are current, many of these transmissions are functioning fine, but the ones that were neglected, driven hard under towing load without fluid changes, or stuck on the original factory calibration, those are the rebuilds. $3,500 to $5,500. The comparison that tells the whole story, the 6L80 and the GMT 900 has none of these issues. It shifts, it holds, it lasts. It's one of the reasons the GMT 900 remains the value king of the used Sierra market. Adequate transmissions that GM calibrated poorly. The aftermarket fixed what the factory couldn't. 4 things that survive, 3 that cost money on schedule, 2 that can cost you thousands, but only if you're not prepared. Here's the honest verdict on a Sierra 1500 at 100,000 miles. The foundation is exceptional. Frame, bottom end, and the 6L80 are built for 300,000 miles or more. The wear items are predictable and budgetable. Brakes, front end, and electrical sensors are the cost of owning a 5,000-pound truck with modern electronics. And the 2 ugly problems, lifters and the newer transmissions, are preventable or manageable if you know they're coming. That's better than most competitors can claim at 100,000 miles. The Sierra doesn't pretend to be perfect, but the things it does well, it does better than almost anything else on the road. And the things it does poorly, you now know exactly what they cost and exactly how to prevent them. If you want to prevent the ugly, watch Never Do This to Your GMC Engine: 5 Deadly Mistakes. That covers the behaviors that accelerate lifter failure and the free fixes that prevent it. And for the upgrades that address the bad, ball joints, transmission cooler, differential cover, watch 5 Cheap GMC Upgrades. Everyone ignores gold mines. 2 lists? Now you have both of them. What you do with them decides whether your Sierra writes a third. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one.